last week we covered where the gospel we wanted to find the gospel in the Bible. Our introduction was, what is the gospel? And we went through the things that people say it is, what society says it is. We had several definitions. Most of them were incomplete definitions. And then we looked to, we want to say, what does the Bible say is the gospel? And in that, we found that you had to have four pillars, four basic foundations to correctly define the gospel. You had to have God as the creator. You had to have man as a sinner. You had to have Jesus as a savior, and you had to have our response once we acknowledge all of that. Okay, so today, building off of that, now we're going to talk about God, the righteous creator. Okay, that's what today's topic is we're going to talk about God, the righteous creator. Now, before we talk about God and acknowledging that He's creator and some of the other attributes of Him, we have to discuss some assumptions about God, because there's a lot of assumptions out there. Okay, my grandparents, your great-grandparents, during their generation, it would probably be fairly safe to say that they grew up in a time period where at least people acknowledged God. Whether or not they actually followed Him or were a Christian, even if they had nothing to do with the church or anything like that, they would at least acknowledge that God in some way existed. Okay, that's not necessarily so anymore. We're living in a culture now where people I don't even believe God exists. Okay, science says this, and the media says this, and philosophy says this, and social sciences say this. So a lot of different things out there. So a lot of people don't even acknowledge that God exists. Okay, then not only not that He doesn't exist, but we also have to what is His character? What is God? Who is God? What do we know about Him? So we have to have a couple foundations before we can even move forward in defining God as a righteous creator. We have to first of all acknowledge that He does exist. He is the creator of all things, including you and me, and He is holy and He is righteous. Okay, so let's start right there. So that's what we're going to go through today. God is creator, and He is holy and righteous. God is creator. So now we're going to go back to Romans. In this book, he's laying out that, Romans chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 are very, very good at defining the gospel. There's a lot in those four books of Romans that really walk us through what the gospel is. So AJ, if you would take us back to Romans and read 1 verses 19 and 20, please.
For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For His invisible attributes, namely His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made, so they are without excuse.
Okay. The world around us, there's something inside of our brains that was put there. There's something there that when we see the world around us, we can't help but to think that there's something bigger than us. Okay? So we're going to hold on to that. We're going to come back to that. Dylan, Genesis 1, 26 and 27.
Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds of the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God He created them, male and female He created them. Okay, so He created all of humanity in His image. Okay, now this is one of those things that I have to consistently. Whenever I think of myself as kind of better than somebody else, especially if I'm with my daughter, and we'll drive and I'll be wanting to lay it on something. They just passed me or they were tailgating me and I'm saying something about them, whatever. And my daughter's like, they're image bearers. I'm like, what? She says,
They're image bearers, just like you're an image bearer. And I said, oh, yeah. I'm no bigger than they are. I'm no greater than they are. They're no smaller than I am. So we're all equal because we're all created in God's image. And Elliot, Psalm 19:1.
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork.
Okay. The heavens and the sky declare his handiwork. Okay, how many mountain people are in here? Mountain people. Who loves to go to the mountains? Okay. 3. AJ's like, yeah, sometimes. AJ, I'll go to the mountains like 2 months out of the year. July and August, that's it. I want nothing to do with the mountains anytime before that. Okay, beach people. I'm a beach guy. Okay, love the beach. Okay, how about the hunters? Where are the hunters at? Okay, love being in the forest, right? Just all of those things. Think about what all those things have in common. When you're either at the foot of a mountain and you're looking up, or you're on the peak of the mountain and you're looking out, I mean, you can see for long ways. Same thing with the beach. When I go and I stand at the beach and I'm just facing the ocean, I'm like, wow, I'm really small. And same thing. When you're in the woods, you've got these trees. And when you think about trees, I mean, trees can be, hundreds of feet tall. Around here, they're 120 feet tall is probably max. But you go out west. I went to Oregon one time, and I got out there, and the guy who was from there, we were walking, and we stopped. A bunch of us folks from the East Coast, we just stopped. And we're like this. And he's like, what are you doing? And we're like, do they end? And he said, what? I said, the trees. I mean, they just keep on going and going and going. It's amazing. But you realize just how small you really are when you stand around something so grand. Okay? So that's what it's talking about. That when we're talking about God is a creator, he created all of that, and yet he created us in his image. Okay? All of that is meant to show how big he is, but then he created us in his image. Okay? Everything in the universe has a purpose, including you, including me. Okay, now, because once we acknowledge that he is the creator, okay, we have to say, because he created us, he has ownership rights over us. What do I mean by that? God created us, so he has ownership rights over us.
He has the right to judge us.
Judge us? If I create something, I'm not very crafty, but...
Commands us?
Huh?
Commands us?
He has the right to tell us what to do. Absolutely. He has the right to use us any way that he sees fit. Okay? Let's just say somebody's a motorhead, a gearhead, and they spend years restoring their favorite car, whatever model car that is. And then after they've spent all that time and all that sweat and all that blood building this machine, they decide, you know what, I'm going to sell it. Do they have the right to do that? Absolutely. Okay, so God created us, and because he created us, and because he has a purpose for us, he also has the right to tell us what to do and how to live, and where to go, and these type of things. What's the problem with that? How many of y'all like being told what to do?
Listen, human nature does not like that.
Nobody likes to be told what to do, especially in America. I'm free. I get the right to do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do, however I want to do, with whoever I want to do it with, because I'm free. Okay? That's what society has kind of put in our heads. Okay? But God, when we admit that God is bigger than we are, we have the right. Okay, so now we've acknowledged that he's creator. Now we're going to talk about he's holy and righteous. Let's define those terms first before I read scripture. Holy. What does it mean to say God is holy? It's one of those big religious terms.
It's pure.
Pure. I like that. Pure. Okay, good. Anybody else? How about another one that starts with P?
Perfect.
Perfect. He's pure, he's perfect, he's unblemished. Okay? And righteous goes hand in hand with that. Okay, let me read Exodus 34. I'm going to read 6 and 7, but I'm going to stop halfway through it. Yeah, that ain't happening. Okay, 34:6. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed. Okay, let me set the scene. Moses is up on Mount Sinai, and God the Creator is talking to Moses, and he's about to give him the 10 Commandments. Okay, and that's the scene. So Moses is getting ready to get the 10 Commandments from God, and then this is kind of what happens. This is what transpires. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. How many of you like that God? I love that God. Sign me up. I'll follow him anywhere. Okay? So let's see. Let's talk about here's his characteristics. He's gracious. Oh, I need a lot of grace. I need a lot of grace. I need a God that's gracious. He's slow to anger. Oh man. That means he's not sitting up here in heaven waiting for us to screw up throwing lightning bolts down. Okay, he's slow to anger. Abounding in steadfast love. Oh yeah, I'm liking this God. I am loving this God. I'm completely in this camp. Faithfulness. It says keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquities and transitions and sin. I like that because I screw up a lot. And man, here's a God, he's full of grace, he's full of love, he's full of forgiveness. Yeah, I mean, that's the God that, it's easy to say, hey, come follow God. And you tell him all these attributes. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, now, listen to this. But who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting iniquity of the fathers on children and the children's children to the third and fourth generations. Did you hear that? Who will by no means clear the guilty. God is just. He's righteous and he's just. What does that mean?
Always right.
Always right. Okay? So let's talk about a God that is loving and a God that he is perfectly loving and perfectly just and perfectly righteous all at the same time. Okay? Let's just say that one of you guys and the Pope, or shoot, I can't use Billy Graham anymore because he's not alive anymore. The most famous preacher you can think of, okay? You commit the same sin, and you're both standing before God. And he comes over here, and he looks and he says, "You're the Pope. Your sin is forgiven because you served in my church." Or you're the preacher, and you taught all these people in my name, so you're forgiven. I'm going to overlook what you did. And then he comes over here to Ryan, and he says, "Ryan, you're going to hell." You go, but we did the exact same thing. Would that be fair? Would that be just? No. It wouldn't be just. It wouldn't be just at all. In fact, it would be showing favoritism. So then what happens? Now everybody wants to become a priest just as quick as they can because that's the only way you can work your way into heaven. Okay? But that's not how it works. Okay? He says, "You're guilty." And then he comes over here to Doug, who's the chaplain, and he says, "You're guilty also. You're both guilty. You're both condemned." Okay? Because you've done unrighteous things. Alright, so he cannot overlook the guilty. That's what we read in Exodus. He cannot overlook the guilty. Because he's holy and because he's righteous, he must judge the guilty and the unrighteous. Okay, let me read Psalm 11:7. We're going to get through these real quick. How are we on time?
About 8 minutes.
Well, I didn't mark these. Because I thought I was going to use my phone. Psalm 11:7. For the Lord is righteous, he loves righteous deeds. The upright shall behold his face. And then I'll read Psalm 33:5 real quick. And you can find these scriptures all through the Bible in many different places. These were just a couple. 33:5, it says, he loves righteousness and justice. Okay, so that's telling us that he is completely righteous. I mean, he is a judge. Okay, the Revelation, especially the entire book of Revelation, is about judgment, final judgment, but especially chapter 20. Okay, it talks about the ultimate great white throne judgment. It talks about how I'll read that real quick because that actually needs to be read instead of me trying to paraphrase it. Revelation 20. Then I saw the thrones, and seated on them were those to whom the authority to judge was committed. I also saw the souls of those. That's not what I want. Okay, this is 2011. Then I saw a great white throne, and him who was seated on it. From his presence, earth and sky fled away, and there was no place found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Then another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged by what is written in the books, according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one according to what they had done. Then when death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire, this is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. That's ultimate judgment. Okay? Because God is holy and he's creator and he's righteous and he's just, he has no choice but to judge sin. He has to. But he judges it fairly based on what we've done. Okay? And every single one of us will fall short of his expectation. What if he is righteous and he is holy and he is pure and he is perfect, what is the standard?
Perfection.
Perfection. Who in here is perfect?
Nobody.
What about me? I'm Jacqueline. Of course I'm perfect. I get extra points, right? I get extra credit. No. I'm in the same boat as you. We're all in the same boat, and we're all rowing on the same side, and we're just going around in a circle. Okay? All right, so I'm going to conclude with this. And this, I'm just going to read right straight out of the book because he says it really good, and I can't say it any better than this. If we're going to understand just how glorious and life-giving the gospel of Jesus Christ is, we have to understand that this loving and compassionate God is also holy and righteous, and that he is determined to never overlook, ignore, or tolerate sin, including our own. Which, of course, brings us to the bad news, which we get next week. So come back next week for the bad news. No, seriously, guys. Next week we're going to talk about man, the sinner, and because before we can understand the good news of the gospel, we have to understand the bad news. You can't get to the good news without going through the bad